Hello, I'm Sally Farrow from Drumlin Farm, which is one of the many sanctuaries of the Massachusetts Audubon Society. And today we're here in Fort Hill Park in the city of Lowell, and we've come to celebrate spring with one of the great activities. The days are getting longer, the nights are cold, the days are above freezing, and when that happens, the trees start to wake up from their winter sleep. We're standing here beside a wonderful old sugar maple tree. So you're probably wondering, how did I figure out this is a sugar maple tree? Well, trees have different patterns of branching. Some trees have, let me put my bill down, some are opposite. Others are alternate. So they have one going out here, one here. But there are only 4 kinds of trees in this area that have opposite branching: maple, ash, dogwood, and horse chestnut, because they're a mad horse. So that's a really good check on trees. If you look up and you see Y's, that's a good start. Then other things that will give you clues for a maple tree is you look at the bark. This is a sugar maple, and it has this wonderful gray, platy bark. Norway maples, which are a tree that was introduced, they have more. I see diamonds in the bark of Norway maples. We also have red maples and silver maples that tend to bloom a little bit earlier in the spring, but they also can be tapped. And of course, the leaves of maple trees are great for identifying the tree, but in the winter, they have fallen to the ground. They're keeping the tree warm because it's winter, and it wouldn't be good if they had all their leaves. So my advice is, if you think you want to tap a maple tree the next spring, check the leaves the summer before. When those leaves are green and they're on the tree and they are photosynthesizing, they're making the sugar that you're going to be tapping into the next spring. And they're also doing some really other amazing things that I'm going to let one of my colleagues tell you about.
In the late winter, the tree starts to wake up. The sap rises to the growing buds and brings them nutrients and sugar. Once these buds leaf out, they begin a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process in which the tree makes its own food. The chlorophyll in the leaves attracts sunlight. In the presence of sunlight, the leaves will take in carbon dioxide and water. Through this process, it will create glucose, or sugar. It will also let off oxygen. By taking in that carbon dioxide, they help filter out pollutants. They also produce oxygen, which creates an overall cleaner air for our environment. Now that we've learned the importance of trees and how they make sap, let's get back to Sally so she can tell us how to tap our own maple tree.
So let's see, bark, branching, leaves, but I think that's pretty much it for the ID of the tree. And once you've found a maple tree, you want to make sure it's big enough. If it's a little tiny maple tree that maybe you just planted, you don't want to tap that, because you would take too much sap out of the tree, and it wouldn't be healthy for the tree. So you want to tap a tree that's at least a foot in diameter, but you really want to be very, very careful to make sure you aren't taking too much, because trees do so many wonderful things for us. We really want to be wonderful stewards of our trees. Now, once you've decided you have a maple tree, it's big enough, you have cold nights below freezing and warm days above freezing, aha, it's probably time to tap, and the sap is probably running.
Here is everything you need to tap your own maple tree.
If this is an old tree, it may have been tapped before, and we don't want to. You don't want to drill into an old tap. We want to be at least 6 inches away from an old hole. Right here, I can see probably an old hole here. We sometimes call them belly buttons. So I'm gonna tap in just about here. I'm in the sunny side of the tree, so hopefully we'll get some sap. When I start to tap, I want to have my drill slightly sloped up. This will help the sap come out of the tree.
First, we go through the layer or the skin of the tree, also known as the bark. Next, we go through a layer called the phloem. In the summer, when the leaves are photosynthesizing, this is where the sugar gets transported down the tree. The next layer, or the cambium, is known as the growth layer of the tree. This is what helps the tree grow outwards and bigger. Once we have drilled through all of those layers, we have made it to the sapwood. At this point, hopefully you can see some wetness on your drill. Once you do, you can begin backing your drill out.
Go in about 1.5 inches into the sapwood through all those layers. We have what we call a spile, has a hook on it. Put it in to the hole and give it a gentle tap. You want it to be firmly in the hole, but we also don't want it to come out when the bucket is full. And I hope you can see that this sap is really running today, and we're a business. Also have a cover for when it rains or snows, because in fact, sap is only about 2 or 3% sugar, and it takes about 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. So you really don't want to dilute your maple syrup. Hence, we put the top on the bucket. Now, if you can't find a nice bucket like this, and you don't want to buy a bucket in an antique store, because often they have the old buckets that have been discarded because they have lead in them. So we don't want to buy one of those. But if you really don't want to or can't find a nice bucket like this, you can use a milk bottle. This is what I use all the time. Basically what you do is I've made a little hole, my finger stuck, and you just put the milk bottle right over the spile. And the good news is you actually can watch your milk bottle fill up. The bad news is on a day like today when the sap is really running, this will fill up very, very quickly, and you'll have to empty it 2 or 3 times. It's a wonderful project for a family if you have a sugar maple, a Norway maple, a red maple, silver maple in your yard that's of the right size. It's such a wonderful project for a family to do, and not just in the spring, but to watch the tree throughout the year, from bud burst to leaf out to leaf drop in the fall. So I highly recommend everybody to have a tree, hopefully a maple tree, so you can tap it and do maple sugaring. But any tree will do, because they are such wonderful, wonderful. They give us so many gifts, and it's just a wonderful thing. So enjoy, have fun, and happy spring.
If you're going to try this at home and try creating maple syrup, please make sure that you follow all the necessary steps to make sure that it is safe. Not only do trees provide us with delicious maple syrup, but every single day they give us direct benefits. Trees help filter out pollutants before they reach our waterways. They also help reduce the effects of flooding and reduce the amount of storm water runoff. They provide shelter and habitat for the local wildlife and food for both humans and wildlife to enjoy. Next time you're outside, find a tree, take a deep breath, and thank it for everything that they do for us.
The Greening the Gateway Cities program provides trees that are planted by DCR foresters and crews hired from local communities. When you sign up as a potential tree recipient, a forester will visit your home or business to determine the best location and species of tree for maximum energy efficiency. Easy care instructions are provided, and it's all free. Find out if you are in the zone and learn more at maurbancanopy.org.
Hi, this is Lee, and I'm an environmental educator with the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. And I'm here today to tell you about my adventures with Blanding's turtles. You've probably heard of painted turtles before, or sun turtles as they're called, and snapping turtles, but have you ever heard of a Blanding's turtle? Scientists have listed the Blanding's turtle as a threatened species on the Massachusetts Endangered Species List, meaning that it's likely to become endangered in the future. You may be wondering where Blanding's turtles live. Well, Blanding's turtles mostly live in the water, and they spend most of their lives among various types of wetlands. They like areas with less tree cover and more shrubs or bushes and soft, mucky bottoms. This type of habitat provides them protection and allows them to find sources of food who also live in this type of area. Blanding's turtles are mostly carnivores, which means they eat meat. They like to eat things like worms, snails, crayfish, and baby insects. They'll also eat frogs, tadpoles, small fish, and even plants that grow in the water. In late spring, when it's time to dig a nest and lay their eggs, they need dry or sandy spots and often have to cross roads like this mother turtle did. Turtle eggs and hatchlings, which are baby turtles, also provide an important seasonal food source for some mammals and birds. Hawks, skunks, raccoons, fox, and even snakes all like to eat eggs and hatchlings. My own adventures with native turtles began in 2008 when I first saw huge snapping turtles and painted turtles laying eggs in my yard. As a scientist, I did some research and discovered that my yard and neighborhood near Lowell is a nesting area to 3 different species of turtles. These turtles and their offspring have probably been living here for hundreds of years, long before there were any houses or roads. So I wasn't too surprised to see another female turtle laying eggs by the side of the road one evening in June. Since we've been looking for this type of turtle at the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust properties, I had become familiar with the differences in Blanding's turtles versus snapping turtles or painted turtles. I was sure as I walked up to it that it was a Blanding's because they have high-domed top shells called a carapace that are dark and covered with yellow flecks. They also have long yellow throats and chins, which make it recognizable at a distance. The lower shell, or plastron, is also yellow with large black blotches. So just to be sure, I took a photo and I sent it to the expert biologists at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service so they could confirm that it was in fact a Blanding's turtle. I was so excited when they told us it was a Blanding's turtle. This began the next step of protecting this nest. We got special permission called a permit to cover this nest so that no predators could get underneath and try to eat the eggs. After we covered the nest with special materials, we watched over it for several days to make sure that it was safe. Then, scientists from Zoo New England came out to verify that there were eggs in the nest.
Make it turtle, but that's the idea. And I'm just gonna really gently now try to, archaeologist out the top of the first egg, which should be again about this depth, but a little further in. All right. So here's our first uncovered egg here. When I first was putting in the temp logger here, I uncovered the tops of 4 eggs, so that's the minimum that's in there.
Okay.
Blanding's turtles generally lay between 8 to 12 eggs, but they can go as low as 5 or as high as 15. I don't know much about the turtle that laid this egg, this clutch. Generally, the bigger the turtle is, the more eggs it will lay. And the top of this egg looks really good. You can see some striations, but nothing problematic. The color's good. If it was for sure inviable, it'd often be really gray and moldy already. So this is a really nice sign.
It was now going to be our responsibility to watch over and help protect this nest for the next 2 to 3 months until the eggs hatched. Then on August 23rd, after waiting and watching over the nest for 2.5 months, we finally had the first 2 eggs hatch.
Mom, you look cute. Oh my god. Okay.
We were so excited to see these adorable little baby turtles and to know that they had survived a drought and were protected from predators for the last couple of months. Over the next few days, we ended up having 8 baby turtles hatch from the eggs. About a week later, the scientists from the zoo came back to make sure that all the eggs had hatched from the nest.
Oh, it's
Oh my
good.
goodness, yeah, that's the
Yeah, this is the shell. Let somebody hatch that if you want.
So cool. Yeah. Actually, you want to wait?
You hold the shell,
Go, keep doing it. You're so good.
And soon after, we were cheering on the baby turtles as they were learning to eat pellets for the first time. After staying at my house for a couple of weeks, the turtles were ready to move to an aquarium at the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust office. My coworkers and I spent quite a while getting their new habitat just right for them. They adapted to it and seemed to love it right away. The turtles are growing bigger every month and doing well thanks to members of the trust and dedicated staff and volunteers who feed the turtles twice a day during the week. The turtle tanks have warm water, about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and they have a UV lamp to mimic the sun and bask under. This helps their shells become stronger. They're also learning to eat different types of food, including salmon, kale, and shrimp, and soon they'll eat live prey like worms and baby insects. All of this caretaking will give them a head start so they'll be more resilient when they're released back to the wild in the late spring. Many of our native turtles are only a little bigger than a quarter when they're first born. But when they're released back to their home wetland, they'll be the size of a 3 or 4-year-old turtle. This whole process has been quite an adventure, and I look forward to more adventures with our native turtles in the future. We hope you enjoyed learning about Blanding's turtles and how special they are to us and our environment.
My name is Surya. I'm 9, and something that I learned is I learned more about the turtles' habitat and how the notches work.
What are notches? You want to tell us what notches are?
Notches are like little marks in turtle shells in certain spots. On the bottom left is the tens, bottom right is the ones, top left is the hundreds, and the top right is the thousands. And so far, I've had a good experience, and I usually do turtle feeding on Wednesdays. We notch the turtle shells so we can identify them, because before it was really hard to see their markings, so we couldn't tell which was which. And
Now can you see them?
And now we can see them, and it doesn't hurt the turtles. It's just a way to identify them.
But you didn't notch it. Who notched it? Do you know?
And some zoo people notch their shells.
Zoo New England.
I really love the Greening the Gateway Cities program. It's meant an awful lot to me personally. Over the last 5 years, we've planted 20,000 trees in 14 communities already.
It's all about the neighborhood, it's all about the community. We're not just increasing the tree per household, we are trying to increase the whole canopy for the whole neighborhood.
It's really great to leave a lasting legacy. We put these trees in the ground for the communities, and they're the legacy that we're leaving behind.
When we come to a city, we work with the city officials as well as the local nonprofit partners to determine which part of the cities have the lowest tree canopy. Then we determine that will be our planting zone. So if you live within the planting zone, you are qualified to receive a tree.
You may think this program's too good to be true, but these costs are covered from the Department of Energy Resources, so energy efficiency money is already paying for these trees. There's a whole bunch of great benefits to the community through the Greening the Gateway Cities program. Predominantly the energy efficiency you get around your homes, shading the structures, reducing the winter winds, so you're saving money there. But also there's health benefits, environmental benefits, and it just makes your community more beautiful and more livable. You don't have to be a homeowner, you can be a renter and still participate in this program.
We have a lot of agencies at the state level. We work with city officials and also local nonprofit to make this happen. On top of it, we have DCR crew working on the trenches to help put the trees on the ground.
Greening the Gateway Cities also is an employment program. Through the Department of Conservation and Recreation, we hire local folks from the community to plant trees. They're trained with our urban and community forestry staff, with our professional foresters, and become tree planting experts.
They start from the whole process of receiving your calls, requesting for a tree, coming to do a site visit with you to figure out the right place for the right tree, and even having a conversation with you as to what tree you prefer to be in your backyard.
We have over 40 different species available for you to choose from. We have the right tree for the right place. We plant during the spring and fall seasons, but you can contact us anytime and our foresters will be happy to schedule a site visit with you.
Participation is easy. The trees are free. We will even plant them for you. Call us today for your free tree. The next generation will thank us for the work we're doing.
And tell a friend and neighbor, trees are good.
Hello, it's environmental educator Emily with Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. In today's video, we are going to learn about the similarities and differences between moths and butterflies, as well as some of the ways these species are impacted by climate change. Butterflies and moths have many things in common. They both come from the order Lepidoptera. This name derives from two Greek words, lepis, meaning scale, and pteron, meaning wing. The scales that cover the body of these insects are actually modified hairs. Though visually similar, butterflies and moths have key differences that you can look for when IDing between the two. When it comes to behavior, butterflies are most active during the day, meaning they are diurnal. Moths, on the other hand, are primarily nocturnal. However, this can't always be accepted as the only identifying factor because there are some diurnal moths, and some butterflies are crepuscular, meaning they are active at dawn and dusk. Another identifying factor is how they hold their wings when landed. Butterflies tend to fold their wings together vertically. Moths tend to spread their wings over their back, covering their abdomen. Generally, butterflies are larger with bright-colored wings, while their moth companions are smaller with duller colors. The eastern tiger swallowtail butterfly that I'm drawing here is considerably brighter than the polyphemus moth I'm drawing below it. Butterflies with bright colors are advertising to predators that they are toxic or taste bad. This strategy is called aposematism. Some butterflies that aren't toxic mimic the colors and patterns of toxic ones. An example of this is the viceroy butterfly mimicking the monarch butterfly. The dull coloring of many moths assists in a very different strategy, camouflage. In the case of the polyphemus moth, the bright circular patterns on its back are there to mimic the front-facing eyes of a predator such as an owl. This scares their own predators into thinking a larger hunter is there. Another key identifying factor between the two are the shape of their antennae. Butterflies have club-shaped antennae, while moths are feathery. Also, if you happen upon a Lepidopterus in their intermediate stage between larva and adult, you will find that their protective coverings are very different. Moths make a cocoon, which is wrapped in silk, while butterflies create a smooth, hard chrysalis. Unfortunately, another similarity between the two is that they are both impacted by climate change. Climate change and other anthropogenic factors affect the habitat for butterflies and moths alike. Butterflies are particularly vulnerable. As temperatures rise, alpine butterflies lose their habitat. Butterflies in general are highly sensitive to climate. Monarchs are no different. They depend on environmental cues to trigger reproduction, migration, and hibernation. With climate change impacting temperature in particular, these species get the wrong signals. Thank you for joining us today as we discuss some of the similarities and differences between moths and butterflies. Though they are from the same order, there are some clear differences between these two types of insects. Though it is sad to know that these beautiful insects are indeed affected by climate change, it is important to keep in mind when assessing our own carbon footprint. Thanks again, and keep your eye out for the polyphemus moth and the eastern swallowtail in your own backyard.